kings, we pound for pound. UFC thrills, stills, nights get loud. Big EQP, that's how we get down.
What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GRP. Back at it again on a Thursday. And yeah, just here to try to make it through the show. I hate saying that, but it's been a hell of a day. And I haven't felt very motivated today. Or I should say, since I got home to get into this. I guess, I just have those days sometimes. I know I've said it before. Today's been one of those days. Sometimes shit just happens and it kills your day, man. It kills your day. I had a very challenging afternoon and it took a toll on me. Mentally, physically, everything. Just like over it, done. But yeah, it's a shitty day, but who cares? My clock looks like it says 001. I'm going to get a new clock at some point because that thing annoys the shit out of me. But I like looking up and seeing the time sometimes, just in the background. I'm not sure why. It's just a weird thing. I bought it just to have in the room, and I didn't think I'd have it in the picture. And it's there, and it's been there, and now I'm used to it. So now I'm like, well, I hate that thing. It's kind of stupid, but it also sucks not to have it there. So I don't know. I need to get a new one that looks cooler than that. That one I thought was gonna be nice, and it's not that nice. It's a pretty cheapy thing. What can I say? I put it in my TikTok shop cart to finish up getting eligible stuff that would get me a discount. I guess that's what you get when you just bargain shopping. I guess I don't know. I just did it to finish up filling up my cart. Yeah, it happens. I'm sure you can relate. Sometimes you just do that shit. Amazon has those things sometimes too, where it's like, get a certain percentage off if you buy eligible products, and they just get you to buy more shit that way. You're like, oh, I saved 25%, cool, but I'm still spending more money. Why am I doing this? Well, we all do it, I think. It's just one of those things. I feel like I'm off center. Everything's all fucked up. My camera is a little moved, so I'm gonna try to fix that. There we go. That's a little better. And yeah, and as far as the show goes, there's we're in the in-between weeks of pay-per-views. You know, we just had one a few weeks ago. This Saudi Arabia card or whatever, with Holloway and Taporia, and then we had UFC Edmonton last weekend, and then this week we have UFC Vegas 100, the 100th event in the Apex Center. Everyone knows how I feel about the Apex. It's just one of those, I think it's just one of those things that it didn't sit right with me after, we've been so far out of COVID and done with all that shit that, and they're still doing events there. And I understand they're utilizing the space. They're doing this, they're doing that, but it's just tiring. And, normally I wouldn't notice it except for when I'm watching the fights. It just seems so different. When we couldn't have fights in big arenas and shit like that, it was fun and it seemed like the fights were really good. But ever since then, they just put mediocre cards in those spots, and it's not fun. A lot of times, just, I think the last event there was almost every single fighter was coming off a loss, which is fine. Wouldn't be a big deal, except, their record, they have like a losing record, or they're on like a 2 or 3 fight losing streak, and all of their losses have come by decision. It's like the most boring ways for things to happen. So they have to find a spot for them somewhere. I get that. There's so many fighters on the roster that sometimes it's just the way it needs to happen, but it's just fucking boring, man. It's boring. And it doesn't lend itself to explosive action and fun. I guess, the UFC's not having to put out so much money to travel and set up and do all the stuff that's needed for all these cards like Edmonton and all the pay-per-views. The pay-per-views, it is what it is. They're going to be all over the place. But the fight nights now being in the Apex Center so much is just crazy. And it's past due to stop doing them there. So, of course, I'm going to talk about that a little more, a little more when we get to it, just because that's where it's happening. But they have numbered events there because, you know, they have their fight night events. We're in like 245 or some shit like that. Obviously, the numbered pay-per-view events were coming up on UFC 309 with John Jones and Stipe Miocic, who Stipe hasn't fought in like 4 years. So that's going to be interesting. And then we're going to see how John Jones can do against who we consider to be the heavyweight GOAT for a long time. But because he's been out for so long, it's tough to continue to say that. We don't have anything to go off of. That's like considering Conor to still be one of the top fighters in the world. He wasn't doing that great when he left. And you know, he's been gone for so long now. And all these promises of coming back fighting and then being let down, it's like, how do you consider him one of the top fighters? It's tough. But also, touching on that Conor thing, maybe some of what's happening right now might be why he wasn't able to make the fights happen. Now, of course, the last time when he dropped out with Michael Chandler, he gave the excuse of the toe. Who knows if that was legit or really at the moment. It seems like a legit injury, but a lot of speculation about whether he was injured prior to that moment and he just used it as an excuse and used an old picture or something. There's a lot of stuff flying around about that, but the biggest thing is he's actually been on trial this week for a civil lawsuit in Ireland for, I believe it's happening in Ireland, for sexual assault and being accused of rape, really. But it's not a criminal case. It's a civil case because I'm not exactly sure why. It's a little strange. I think it's because it happened so far back and there was certain ways that things were treated. I'm not exactly sure why it's a civil, but you know, and then that's the thing people are saying, well, maybe it's because she's trying to extort him, get money. She's just looking for money. Who knows? But between him and apparently a friend of his that are being accused and, you know, being named for this civil lawsuit. So a lot of tough kind of details were coming out about that. And if all of it's true, it's like, damn, Conor, what are you doing? Why would you get yourself into this kind of shit? Especially with what we see out of him in the public eye, in front of his wife, of all things, doing crazy shit with women. You know, maybe these women are kind of turned off by some of this stuff, so he gets rejected a lot, maybe. But I couldn't see it because he's got a lot of money. He's a flashy guy, and who knows? But that's what's happening with him right now. So we're not going to see him fighting soon because they need that to be over with. But I'm still certain that it's going to start ramping up with the talks of what his next fight's going to be in this, that, or the other thing coming up when the new year hits. And, you know, they're going to hope that everybody forgot. Who knows? But I'll tell you what helps me not forget things. I'm going to hit my sponsor right now because I don't want to forget before we jump into all of the topics. Noctane smelling salts. Definitely got to thank them for the sponsorship. I like the product. I use it all the time. You know, I've said it multiple times, but you know, it's definitely helpful with staying alert and staying awake, getting a quick little adrenaline rush. You know, that's what helps wake you up. And there's a lot of other uses for it. I like using it. I use it daily, and especially for the podcast, keeps me awake, keeps me alert. And it is starting to wear off a little bit. I might have to pull the little tricks to refresh a little, but still a good product, still worth it, and still effective until it completely runs out. I just need to get a new bottle soon. But DJ Infinity from the Technically Unsound podcast got himself a bottle of it, and he's been using it. It helps. We have this little running joke because we do some trivia and blind reviews and a couple other things like some puzzles and stuff like that. Just entertaining things during that podcast, during the Technically Unsound podcast on Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Arizona time. 8 p.m. now. Sorry, 8 p.m. We changed because of the time change. So, not that the time changes here, it's just it changes back where Tommy is and he runs the pod. So, 8 p.m. now, Arizona time for Technically Unsound podcast. Go check that out if you want to hear me talk about other things other than MMA and combat sports. And like I said, we incorporate the Noctane smelling salts in that so we can be nice and awake and alert for the trivia and other brain-boggling games that we play. So that's fun. Thanks again, Noctane, for the sponsorship. Don't forget to hit that QR code and go to their website, order yourself a bottle, check out what they have to offer, and read up on the product. And the website looks cool too, so it's fun to look at. So go check it out. Thanks again, Noctane Smelling Salts. And that's it for that. So now I guess we could just get into things. I already talked about my day. Don't want to get into details there. It's just rough. This week has been a little off completely at work. A little bit of slow downtime, just waiting for some projects to hit. And when that happens, I know we're going to be super busy, but the holidays are around the corner. I mean, we're in November and we're getting ready to hit Thanksgiving. And it's like October went by in a flash. Halloween was like here out of nowhere, and now Thanksgiving's just around the corner. Once Thanksgiving hits, then it's really like next thing you know, you're waking up and it's January 2025. You're like, what the fuck happened? But the other big thing that happened this week, I'm not gonna gloss over it. I'm not gonna completely ignore it, because obviously we had a presidential election happen this week. So I'm not going to get into big political talk or anything like that, but it is going to lead me into our first combat sports news topic. So let me go ahead and start that and we'll talk about it. As you know by now, everybody knows by now, unless you're living under a rock and don't pay attention to absolutely anything, Donald Trump is going to be our new president as soon as, well, he basically is now. But it was him versus Kamala Harris, as we all know, and Donald Trump took the win. And you know, he's close with Dana White. He's been to a bunch of UFC events, and I'm sure we're going to see him there again. There's one coming up in New York next weekend. Not this weekend coming up, but next weekend. New York, of all places, that would be a spot Donald Trump would show up to, Madison Square Garden. And you know, even he's not in office yet, so it might be the last one we see him at for a little while, because you know, being the president and all, you're going to be busy. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him there. But we had the crazy elite guys here, and Dana White's a part of that now. But we have Donald Trump, and you saw a lot of Elon Musk and Dana White all over the place. Plenty of pictures going around. But I mean, it was crazy to see Dana White, the president of the company that I follow the most, that I cover the most with my content, the UFC. He's the president, and he's up there giving a victory speech with the actual president now. Crazy shit. To see him so involved in the election, and to see him so involved with the party that won, it's just a little kind of surreal. Like, it's weird. Like, what of all people, Dana White. But, and you know, we're not all too keen on the way he conducts himself with a lot of things, especially when it comes to the fighters and fighter pay and stuff like that. There's always controversy and things that make him not be in the best light. The way that he handles certain situations with the company and the fights and everything like that. But he's definitely been just talking up Trump and talking about all of the things that are good for the country and good for, us to have him as president again. And they won, so he's up there. I didn't like really how he kind of presented some of this stuff as like kind of like they were the bad guys and all this other stuff. I get why he would say some stuff like that, but some of it was just kind of like, why this is what you talk shit about the other side playing the pity party and the victim game, and then some of the stuff he said kind of sounded like he was doing that. So Dana does a lot of stuff like that. I mean, you can't be perfect all the time. So I guess you just roll with the punches, and Dana's really good at letting shit roll off his shoulder unless it really gets him. But for the most part, he was there, and he was the first guy to speak after Trump won, which is crazy. So I just wanted to cover that for a minute because it's pertinent to what I do here, which is talk about the UFC. Like it or not, Trump is the new president and will be taking office next January. I was gonna say next month. We're not December yet, but yeah, it is what it is. Like it or not, that's just how it's been. So we'll see what kind of changes happen come next year. We'll see if it's for the better, for the worse. We're gonna see a lot of smearing and just belittling of everything. But that happens no matter who wins. It happens no matter what. That's just the state of politics and being the president, I guess. So congrats to everybody that voted for him. Sorry for everybody that didn't. We're all gonna be okay. Let's just keep living and make sure that we make ourselves happy and keep moving forward, and maybe not think that it's the end of the world on either side, for whatever reason. I think it's gonna be okay. There's a lot more wrong with this country than just who's the president at the moment. So hopefully it all makes a turn for the better and everyone can just be united and happy. That's a far-fetched thing to say these days, but it's good to hope and well worth saving, just keeping hope alive for something like that. So yeah, just be nice and let's leave it all alone now and enjoy the holidays. All right, that's it. That's enough. Let's move on to something a little more grotesque, because this picture is not the best, but it has to be reported on, and I had to show because people might say it's not real. People might give him shit like they did to Connor, but Bilal Muhammad has a toe injury as well. This one's a little more gruesome. So if you look at that middle toe, it's fucking gross. Now, first of all, feet are just gross anyway, especially guys' feet. So and these guys spend a lot of time barefoot. So, it's not going to look the best, but when it comes down to it, it is what it is. You're showing the injury to show and prove that there was an injury. He had a bone infection. So I'm assuming it was staph that seeped into his bone, and that toe looks like it's ready to pop and just be gone for the rest of his life. I'm surprised that he's able to keep it. But so he was supposed to fight Shavkat Rachmanov. I couldn't remember the last name, but he was supposed to fight him in December. That fight is now off because obviously that toe should not be stood on or kicked with, or anybody should be near that toe because that's gross. So now they're looking to see who's going to be the replacement. Is Shavkat going to stay on the card for an interim title? Bilal's saying it's like a 6-week after he got, I don't think he got surgery or anything, but however they're treating it, he's saying there's going to be like a 6-week turnaround. He should be fine and be able to get back to training, but it still hinders the ability to fight when he's supposed to. So he has to, take the time off. Everyone else is saying it's going to be minimum 6 months with something that bad. Who knows? We've seen crazier things happen and faster times healing. But with this one, it's pretty gross, and it should definitely be careful with that. He should be careful with that, and he should take the amount of time to make sure that it does not happen again, because the last thing you want is back-to-back injuries keeping you out for a year or more. Like Dominic Cruz had the unfortunate thing happen to him over and over again with the injuries, and you try to come back too quick. You don't let the give enough time to heal, and next thing you know, you're having to give up your title. So that's never good. So Bilal should probably make sure that he takes care of that the proper way. But speaking of pulling out of fights, there's been a lot of this is strong. I forgot that I have a bottle back there that's like 137 proof. And it may be mixed in with some stuff to make it an old fashioned, but damn, that was a strong sip. Anyway, pulling out of fights, there's been a lot of it lately. This past week, we've heard of a few. Cody Garbrandt's supposed to be fighting in this upcoming UFC Vegas 100, and he is out of that with an injury. He was supposed to be fighting Miles Johns. He was going to be the co-main event, I believe, and he's out of the fight with an undisclosed injury, I think. I don't know what they said it was. Tracy Cortez was supposed to be fighting on December 14th against Miranda Maverick. She apparently, I guess there was a mix-up with something. I don't know if something new came up or she really did have something on the schedule, but apparently she's going to have some kind of surgery. Everything's been kind of quiet. They showed her at UFC Edmonton. She was there. She was in the crowd. She looked fine. I don't know, what the injury was or what the reasoning for the surgery. I think so. As of right now, I haven't seen any updates, but I missed a lot today, so I could be wrong. There could have been an actual reason given, but she's out of her fight with Miranda Maverick. That was going to be a good one, so I'm kind of sad about that one. And then there was a rumor going around, which I now know is supposedly not true, but there was a rumor for a couple days that Michael Chandler was pulling out of the Charles Oliveira fight for 309 of the John Jones fight card. And then I heard that Charles Oliveira was pulling out. We had Dustin Poirier on Twitter saying, let me jump in. I'll fight either one of them. Whoever's out, I'll fight them. That's Dustin for you. The Diamond does that. And he's looking to finish off his career with a couple big fights. So I know that would have definitely been one of the fights he wanted, to fight either one of those two. But it looks as of right now for this not to be true. Both fighters are still in. We'll find out more next week, or maybe even by the weekend. Because sometimes on the fight night cards you get announcements of things like maybe fighters that are out, new fights being made, anything like that. Bigger events come in, all that stuff can happen on a fight night randomly. So be on the lookout for that while you're watching UFC Vegas 100 this weekend. And hopefully we don't get too many more fighters pulling out of upcoming fights. So get well to everybody there. Tracy Cortez, Cody Garbrandt, and hopefully nobody's injured with that Chandler and Oliveira fight. Alexander Romanov fought, I believe, in the last fight night in Edmonton, and he's been released. I didn't really see why he was coming. He won his fight against Nascimento, but I don't know if it was he was on a 2-fight losing streak, and that broke that losing streak, got him in the win column, but unfortunately he's now out of the UFC. So there's that, and then there's another fighter that is out of the UFC, and that leads us to our next topic, which is Germaine Durandamy, former flyweight champion for the women's division in the UFC. She announced her retirement, and she says, "Hey guys, with so many mixed feelings, I'm sharing this message with you all. I definitely didn't plan, envision, or dream it would end this way, but hey, it is what it is sometimes. I begged the UFC for one more fight, but it had to be this year. I promised myself I would retire from fighting on December 31st, 2024. Unfortunately, the UFC told me all cards are fully booked. That's why I decided that the time is now. I really wished I could have walked the walk one more time, but I guess it's not meant to be." there are too many people to thank personally. So thank you all for being a part of my journey. Thank you for all the amazing memories. I'm forever grateful for each one. Like I always say, die with memories, not dreams. So that was her social media post. Being a former champ, you know, she didn't have the belt for a long time. She was a great fighter though. A lot of people may not have known her. She wasn't a very big name, regardless of the championship, but she was a damn good fighter while in her heyday, I guess you could say. It just seemed like as soon as she lost that title, it was kind of downhill from there. It sucks that she didn't get to, you know, make her retirement with one last fight in the cage and set her gloves down, but you never know how that can go. So and it's kind of strange that the UFC wouldn't make room for her on one of these cards. You know, none of these fights are that important to not be able to. Maybe they just couldn't find her an opponent. That might have been the thing, because how many times have you seen somebody fight in the women's featherweight division lately? Not many, and I'm not sure we have at all. So I mean, we kind of are looking at that division as being gone. So that might be another reason for why they haven't given her a fight. Maybe they told her, hey, make 135 and we'll get you a fight. And that's probably not somewhere she wants to be. So I guess it is what it is. So thank you to Jermaine Durandamy for the memories and the fights and everything else you gave the sport. And good luck on everything else moving forward. You always got to give them props for stepping in there, dedicating their life to the sport and giving us any good memories of good fights. You know, not everybody has the best of careers. She actually got to win the title at one point in time, regardless of how long it was for. So no matter what, she gets that respect. And you know, I don't know what else I was trying to say. my words are not here right now, so I'm trying to get through it without stumbling too much, but that's not happening. I'm stumbling a lot. It's okay. I'll take another sip of this strong ass drink and hopefully it makes it better. So moving on to UFC Edmonton, and I feel like I'm gonna say this now to see if maybe it drags it out like it usually does. It depends on what kind of rant and what kind of motivation I have to speak on certain topics a lot. So but right now we're only half hour in and I'm already getting to everything's a little shorter, so we'll see how long this actually goes. I don't know why I always feel the need to talk about that, but I notice these things and I can't help but fucking say it out loud, I guess. But yeah, let's move on to UFC Edmonton for a little recap of the fight card last weekend for the UFC Fight Night. This past Saturday, Brandon Moreno versus Amir Albazi was the main event, and we had Aaron Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas for the co-main. A lot of decisions on the card, but there was some really good fights. We did not get the Derek Lewis fight versus Jonata Janice because speaking of fighters pulling out, Black Beast pulled out right before the fight. And you know, he was supposed to fight Denise, and he made the weigh-in, the official weigh-in, but he didn't make it to the ceremonial weigh-ins. And at the time, they said that he just had some complications, but that the fight was still on. And then shortly after that, they pretty much announced that he was out of his fight. So that sucks. That seems to be something that happens to him every once in a while. He seemed like on a good path. Like he was doing well with his training and his cardio and his health. So who knows what happened to him, but he definitely had some complications that stopped him from being able to make it to the fight. And it probably wasn't weight cutting issues, I don't think, unless they caused whatever happened to him, because I mean, he made the weight, he got there, he got to the weigh-ins, the official weigh-ins, and made the weight. So I don't know. It's kind of a toss-up as to what happened, but he was initially supposed to fight Romanov, and then they changed it over to Denise, and now, you know, it didn't happen at all. So that was that fight. Let's move over to the prelim fights, we had Jamie Lynn Horth versus Ivana Petrovic. That was a split decision win for Jamie Lynn Horth in the women's flyweight division. And then we had Cody Gibson versus Chad Anhelinger, I think. That was a men's bantamweight fight. That was a unanimous decision win for Cody Gibson. So yet another decision. But Cody Gibson had what he's claiming to be the first 12-6 elbow landed after the rule change. Not a whole lot going on with the rule changes during the fights this night, besides maybe the Cody Gibson one, which I heard that it wasn't necessarily 100% 12-6. It's probably something he would have got away with, even if that rule didn't come into play. I did see a little bit of gameplay happening with the grounded opponent rule change. People thinking that their hand being down still is gonna be them being a downed opponent, but it's not. So saw a couple knees landed, nothing drastic, nothing dramatic. So no big outcomes from the rule changes. We'll see what happens this weekend with the fight night and then the first pay-per-view. John Jones might be happy to see those 12-6 elbows gone. He's petitioning to try to get that loss on his record taken away. Or at least, I mean, I also heard that they were like thinking maybe they could just change it to a no contest instead of a loss, so he's considered undefeated. But no matter what, I mean, his career is riddled with asterisks, right? Because of the drugs, the recreational drugs, the performance enhancing drugs, and then all of the other drama and just controversy riddled in his life, in his personal life, you know, getting arrested, court dates, everything else. So there's a lot of asterisks next to his name, and that would just be another one. Actually, it would just take the place of the one that's already there for the one loss on his record that people claim isn't a true loss. If it gets taken away, it's still going to be an asterisk there, I think, because it's going to say, well, it was considered a loss up until 2024 or 2025 if it were to get changed. And it would still say he technically lost, but it was overturned to a no contest. But it is what it is. So yeah, let's see, who else did we have? Sarai Sadeh versus Garrett Armfield. Another split decision win for Sadeh in the men's bantamweight division. And then that Romanov versus Alexander Romanov versus Rodrigo Nascimento. Unanimous decision win there for Romanov, who then proceeded to get cut, or maybe his contract was up and they didn't renew. I'm not sure. It sounded like he got cut, and I'm not sure why. 1-2 in his last 3 fights. Maybe that's why. Maybe they weren't very happy with the unanimous decision. I'm not sure. But he's no longer in the UFC. So moving over to the first finish of the night, Youssef Zalal versus Jack Shore, which was supposed to have been a pretty damn good fight. At least I thought it was going to be. I would say it pulled through a bit. It was an exciting fight. It was entertaining. Nothing crazy dramatic, but this knee was pretty good here, as you can see. The contact and then the follow through of Zalal there. And then in the second round, winds up submitting him with the... Yeah, it was the second round. I thought I saw that wrong. Winds up submitting him with the arm triangle choke here. So Youssef Zalal getting a performance bonus as well for that submission finish of Jack Shore in the men's featherweight division. So moving on to Charles Air Jourdain versus Victor Henry in the men's bantamweight division. The second finish of the night, yet another submission. We had a guillotine choke submission finish for Charles Jourdain in the second round over Victor Henry. So you can see Jourdain got his strikes in, though he's a good striker, leading it all up to getting him on the ground and getting that submission, as you can see in the bottom picture there with that guillotine choke. Good head kick landing there, even though it was partly blocked. He's still got that in there. That always affects the fighter still, even though they may have blocked it partially. You still get that impact from that kick. And Jourdain definitely has some powerful strikes. So takes him to the ground, gets a guillotine choke, submission win there for Charles Jourdain. After that, we had Aiemann Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz, which was a pretty good fight actually to finish the prelim card. Aiemann Zahabi comes out with the unanimous decision win there. Oh, Charles Jourdain got the performance of the night bonus as well with his submission. And it's probably because it looks like all of the fights that finished with that ended with the finish got performance bonuses. So that tells you a lot about what the UFC is looking for. But Aiemann Zahabi versus Pedro Munoz was a pretty exciting fight. Good back and forth. It got bloody. But in the end, it was a unanimous decision win for Aiemann Zahabi over Pedro Munoz in the men's bantamweight division. A lot of lower weight fighters in the except for that one heavyweight fight, but pretty much like bantamweight and featherweight happening in the prelims. And then that brings us to the main card. Mike Malott representing Canada, supposed to be, basically everyone's touting him to be like the next Rory McDonald, with the possibility of getting to that GSP level, but he looked a little stagnant in this fight. A lot of people were expecting a lot more from him over Trevin Giles. He does get the win by unanimous decision, but he didn't do a whole lot with it. As you can see, the damage on his face, he got beat up a little bit too. Trevin Giles had his moments in the fight, but Mike Malott was able to edge it out in the end. Unanimous decision, yes, but I would say it was still a competitive fight. It wasn't a very what is the word I'm looking for? I'm just having trouble today, guys. I don't know what the fuck's happening. I'm not feeling it completely. So I don't know why. I need to get into it. I'm trying to drink this drink and hope that it's gonna turn things around for me. My brain is just moving slow. Smelling salt ain't working today for me. Kicking the nicotine out because that's not working. I don't know what's happening. That's all right. There wasn't a lot of exciting stuff happening in these fight cards either, in the one coming up or this one. So that's a downer too, because not a lot to get excited for, which sucks. I mean, it really does. But sometimes you just gotta hang in there and hope for the best. And this card coming up this week hasn't happened yet, obviously. So let's hope for the best there and get some really good fights out of it. But until then, we'll continue on with UFC Edmonton Recap and moving over to Dustin Stoltzfus versus Marc-Andre Barriault. This was a pretty good fight. Stoltzfus just basically dominated with the takedown and control on the ground. Like, he just did the damn thing. Did I? No, I just didn't label it right. But yeah, he basically took down Marc-Andre Barriault pretty early in the fight. He did get the first round finish, and it was 4 minutes and 28 seconds into the first round. So pretty close to being ended there. He had 32 seconds left for Barriault to get out of that round. But after a little scramble, getting back to the feet, and then or trying to get back to the feet, I think. And then Stoltzfus just getting back to the dominant position and able to no, they did get to the, yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm getting my timeline mixed up here. They did get back to the feet after him basically dominating on the ground. Stoltzfus did, and Barriault gets back to his feet and then gets a big right hook that drops him, and Stoltzfus jumps on top, finishes him with 32 seconds left in the first round. So he gets what looks to be the only looks to be the only finish by strikes. It's so crazy. Every other finish in this fight was by submission, and the rest were decisions. That's a tough card. But Stoltzfus looked good in this fight. A lot of people were thinking Barriault had the upper hand in this one. But Stoltzfus proved everyone wrong there with that big right hook, and then jumped on him for the ground and pound, as you can see in that picture on top, and then his celebration at the bottom after the win. So that was in the men's middleweight division. Performance of the bonus night. I mean, performance of the night bonus for Stoltzfus. I can only laugh at myself now because I just am struggling. I feel so like lethargic. I don't know why. I just feel kind of just out of it. And I keep talking about it because I'm like, maybe that'll bounce me out of it. I don't know what the fuck is happening. But moving on to probably one of the more exciting fights of the night, Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Ariane Lipski. This one I thought was going to be an interesting fight anyway, because Jasmine is exactly what part of her last name says, vicious. And Ariane Lipski, I believe her nickname is the Queen of Violence. Yep. So, you're thinking, shit, we're going to get a hell of a fight here. And Jasmine definitely gave you a lot to watch with the striking. As you can see here, landing a lot of strikes. But Jasmine's good everywhere. She's good on the feet. She's good on the ground. She's got the good takedowns. She fights for that takedown and she'll get it. And when she does, she puts you in bad positions. And that's what she's known for. So Jasmine Jasudavicius is definitely a difficult opponent to fight. This fight did go 3 rounds, but 2 minutes and 28 seconds in, Jasmine was able to get the proper position and lock in a Darce choke and get the win, which I thought that picture on the bottom was pretty cool of her sitting on the cage. She is from Canada as well, so she's getting the win on her home turf in front of her home crowd. So that was pretty cool for her. Performance of the night bonus there for Jasmine with that finish. And that moves us over to Brenton Ribeiro versus Kyle Machado in the men's light heavyweight division. This fight, what happened to my picture? Because I know for a fact, that I fixed that. Because I remember when I did my run through, I definitely fixed that picture because it was not correct when I went through the testing. So we'll blow that up a little bit and show you Ribeiro's big right hand that he landed on Kyle Machado. And let's see. Yeah, okay. I thought something else was wrong here. You know what it is? That's why. Because I think I was supposed to put them together and I did not do that. So, let's get that hook. Okay, cool. There we go. With Kyle Machado with the big head kick there. Not a whole lot else going on in this fight. Split decision win for Brenton Ribeiro in this one. That's really all there was to it. I mean, this wasn't one of those big crazy fights for the big guys. And that leads us to the co-main event. Aaron Blanchfield versus Rose Namajunas. Thug Rose. Man, I was hoping for Rose to just get a big win here. I mean, she's just been so up and down with her. She's been so up and down in her career in her past few fights. She had 2 wins in a row coming off wins over Amanda Hebus and Tracy Cortez. Before that, she was on a 3-fight losing streak. So I was hoping she went on that 3-fight win streak, continued it on, and making her way back up to a possible title shot. But unfortunately, she couldn't get it done against Aaron Blanchfield, who's a hell of an opponent, ranked higher than her. But, the first 2 rounds looked so damn good for Rose. Like, I was like, damn, this looks like the Rose of old. She was... Her boxing was crisp and clean. She was landing strikes left. I mean, her jab was definitely working for her. So I was hoping to see her continue down that path as the fight moved on. I didn't think she was going to be able to get the finish. She's not really much of a knockout artist. Yeah, she knocked out Weili Zhang with that head kick, but it's not something typical for her. She has a lot of decision wins, a lot more submission wins, but I was hoping to see either her be able to get a TKO in this one, or at least, you know, make it to the end and win it by points. But something happened at the end of the second round, kind of, and then in the third round, shit just really turned around. Erin Blanchfield just woke the fuck up and was like, I think I've had enough of getting hit by this stiff left jab of Rose, and she woke up and started striking and landing. She just couldn't seem to put anything together in the first 2 rounds. So then she gets to the third round and she wakes up and she starts to have a better performance. And the third round was just the beginning, because she continued on into the third and fourth round, and Rose just couldn't put anything together anymore. She couldn't get a rhythm. She looked out of place. She looked uncomfortable. She looked tired. And, you know, I've heard a lot of talk of the fact that maybe this is, you know, the beginning of the end for Rose in her career. She's talked about retirement already a lot. After certain situations, you know, getting slammed on her head by Jessica Andrade, where her, you know, she hurt her neck. Like she said, that was traumatic for her. The whole incident with Conor McGregor, you know, throwing a dolly into the bus and glass flying in people's eyes and shit. She was inside that bus. That was traumatic for her. She took some time off after all that stuff. And then, you know, she just had her problems. The just utterly disgusting fight against Carla Esparza that lost her the title the last time. And she just hasn't looked to be at 100% Thug Rose like we were used to seeing her. So Erin Blanchfield took advantage of that after she got out of her little funk in the first 2 rounds. Wound up using her ground game and controlling Rose on the ground. Rose couldn't get out. So, you know, oh shit, I just pushed the wrong button. There we go. So then Erin winds up getting the win. She was pretty happy about it. I mean, I think she was doubtful because of the way the first 2 rounds went, and the third round was a little bit iffy, but it was pretty apparent when you're watching it on TV that she won the third, fourth, and fifth easily. The third was somewhat closer than the rest, but not close enough to call it a possibility win for Rose. So Rose unfortunately moves back into that loss column, and yeah, she needs to turn it around or figure out what she wants to do. I don't think that she's done yet, but you never know with Rose. She does her own thing. She makes up her mind and she runs with it. So you never know what you're going to get from her. And who knows? Next week we could find out that she retires. Next month, maybe she just doesn't fight for a while, and then we hear about it like Jermaine Durand to me. But I hope if she does retire, she gets to do it in the cage with one more fight, and hopefully it's on a win. Until then, though, I won't count her out. Thug Rose has always been one of my favorites, but we're getting to that point right now where you're seeing a lot of fighters that you've been happy to watch, that you're excited to watch, that you can't wait to see fight again, that you just like brag to your friends about. All these fighters that you've done all this with for the past few years. I know a lot of them are in my categories of great fighters, and a lot of them are just falling off now, man. They get older, been in a lot of wars, taking a lot of damage, and they just, you know, they're getting older, man. It sucks, especially in the fight game. So believe me, I know about getting older. I wish I was doing this show when I had so much energy all the time back in the day, but didn't happen for me like that. It happened for me when I was older, so that's okay. I make the best of it. But yeah, with fighters, it's like too many wars, too many battles, too much damage. The age catches up with you. Not everybody can fight until they're like 45, like Randy Couture did, even though he got a late start. So it happens, and you start to see a lot of the era of your favorite fighters, maybe the era that you got into MMA, if you got into it a while back. All of those fighters are starting to fall off. A lot of them have retired already. A lot of them are getting ready to retire. A lot of them should have retired, like, you know, Tony Ferguson. But that has a lot more to do with just his age. But It's just a sad thing, man, and it sucks to see, and it sucks when you have to talk about one of your favorite fighters, you know, getting to that point of their career. So good luck to Rose. I hope she turns it around soon. Hopefully we get to see her fight again soon. She wasn't injured a lot in this fight, not a lot of damage, probably more to the ego than anything. So moving on to the main event, Amir Albazi versus Brandon Moreno. And yeah, Brandon Moreno was, you know, not doing well for a while there. He took some time off. It sounded like he should have taken more time off than he did, because he came back a lot sooner than people thought he would. But I mean, he came back and he looked good in his fight. I mean, it was a unanimous decision win for him over Albazi. But regardless of that, he looked really good, you know, throughout the fight. Looked like the Brandon Moreno of old. You know, things got a little bloody. Amir got busted up, and Brandon was just taking advantage of that. You know, he had those two big fights against Pantoja and Royval. Pantoja's the one where he got his title taken from him, and then he had a fight against Royval that was a split decision, so a pretty close fight there. But Brandon Moreno was just not looking like himself. That was back in February of this year. And then here he is in November. That's what I mean by he did not take the amount of time that everyone thought he was going to take, because he just looked like he was tired, and he kept saying he was just tired. He needed time away, needed a break from training, and a way to get himself together. But he said pretty much within a couple weeks of that rest time that he was going to take, he pretty much felt like he needed to get back in there and fight quickly. So he took as much time as he could, and he made his way back, and he looked like his old self when he came back with this fight against Albazi. I mean, I heard a few things about Albazi possibly not being 100% health-wise. Maybe some illness or something was in there, but man, Moreno just handled him and did work and did his thing, and he wins in the end. And he's talking about the fact that, you know, he probably needs like one more fight before he gets a title shot again, because of course everyone's asking him, do you think that this is going to catapult you to the next title shot against Pantoja, who has a title shot coming up against Kaya Sakura, I think that's his name, newcomer who gets his first fight in the UFC for a title. But he's a big thing in kickboxing and Muay Thai, I think. So he's coming in and getting that title shot quickly, and that's because there's not too many other opponents for Pantoja that he hasn't either fought and beat already, or is even in line for that title fight. So they brought someone in from the outside, and that's gonna go down. So I guess we'll see how that happens, or we'll see what happens with that. But Brandon Moreno getting back in the win column after 2 losses in a row, with the big win over Amir Albazi. Unanimous decision win for Moreno in the main event of UFC Edmonton. And that wraps it up for that. So let's move into UFC Vegas 100, happening at the UFC Apex Center. And like I said, I'm sure I was going to talk about it again, but now we're actually talking about that fight. So the Apex is one of those places that it just doesn't seem like, the venue's weird. It's small. They don't have a lot of people in there. I think it's only like 100 or a couple hundred. Nothing crazy like in the big arenas and stuff that they do, where it's thousands and thousands of people. So, you know, the atmosphere is different. You can hear a lot of the coaches screaming and what they're saying. Everything's a lot more quiet, and it just seems like they put mediocre fights on there. And I'm not saying that Magny versus Pratis is mediocre whatsoever, much less any other fight on this card that's in the main card, because this is actually a pretty decent card. We have a newcomer in here with a decent name. Yeah, I guess it's not the best card in the world, but it did seem like it was somewhat worth it when it got announced. You know, that Cody Garbrandt Miles Johns fight was supposed to be pretty big. I thought it was going to be an exciting fight with those two, and then, you know, Cody has to pull out. It seems like at the end of the year there's a lot of injury bugs going around, people having to pull out of fights. I think we did this last year too around this time. So it sucks when it hits, because then it affects a lot of shit, and it messes with the schedule, and it messes up fight cards like this one, where that would have been a great co-main event for Cody Garbrandt and Miles Johns, and now it's not happening. So, but in the prelims we have, let's see, Melissa Mullins versus Claudia Seguela in the women's bantamweight division. 6-1 are for the records on both of them. We got Tresean Gore versus Antonio Tricoli. That should be a pretty good one. Both these guys are beasts. 185, so that's the middleweight division for the men's middleweight division there. We got Cody Stamann versus Damon Blackshear. That should be a pretty good fight too. Now these are names that you kind of see not big fights from, but these guys always put it all out there. Tresean Gore with his like dominating wrestling and grappling and stuff, and then Cody Stamann and Damon Blackshear will slug it out. So these are pretty good names down here in the prelims, and we're only 3 fights in. We get to another couple names that look like that are recognizable names that have decent fights most of the time. Charles Radke versus Matthew Semmelsberger in the welterweight division. Elizu Selesky versus Zach Scrogan in the welterweight division as well. And then Cortavius Romius versus Gaston Bolanos in the bantamweight division. And then your last prelim, Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Denise Gomes in the women's strawweight division. Kowalkiewicz, she's fought for the title a few times. She's been up there in contention for a long time. She's been around for a while. And Denise Gomes is a tattered up chick. She's got a huge tattoo on her neck, makes her look pretty intimidating. She's a pretty decent striker. That should be a fun one. We'll see where Kowalkiewicz is at with this one. I think she seems like she's older just because she's been around for a while, but Gomes is 24. Kowalkiewicz is 39. Damn, she is older. Okay, I was thinking she was still like kind of mid 30s. 39 though for fighting, that's up there in age. But she's still doing the damn thing. So we'll see where she's at with this fight. She is coming off of a loss over Yasmin Lucendo, but before that she had 4 wins in a row, with wins over Felice Herrig, Vanessa Demopoulos, and Diana Belbita. So pretty good names there. We'll see what she does against Denise Gomes. And that brings us over to the main card, with the first fight being Mansour Abdul Malik versus Dusko Todorovic, I think. tough names. 6-0 though for Malik. This is his UFC debut. 5-0 in TKOs, KOs, 1-0 in subs, and no decision wins or losses. He's on a 6-fight win streak because he's 6-0 total in MMA. No fights yet in the UFC, obviously, because it's his debut. But he's fighting Dusko Todorovic. I'm gonna struggle with that one. We'll call him Dusko. 12-4 in MMA, 3-4 in the UFC. Losing record there, that's tough. 8-3 by KO TKO, 3-0 in subs, and 1-1 by decision. He's coming off a loss. And let's see, Mansour. Where's he coming from? Let me look, because I was kind of. Oh, he's coming from LFA. He had a couple of. Damn, he's fought everywhere. No big names on his record yet, so this will be. He's coming off a win on the Contender Series as well, though. Contender Series, LFA. He's had some grappling events. So yeah, 1 submission win, 5 wins by KO TKO. So all of his 6 fights have been has gone to a finish, so that's pretty good. We'll see if he comes in to make a big statement in his UFC debut versus Dusko Todorovic, I think. He's coming off that loss to Christian Leroy Duncan. Pretty good opponent there. That was a knee injury for Dusko back in 2023. So he hasn't fought in over a year. So we'll see what he does against the debuting fighter in Malik. So that moves us over to women's strawweight division. Luana Pinheiro versus Jillian Robertson. Robertson is a beast. This girl can do it all, really, and she's pretty exciting when she fights. She's hardly ever involved in a really boring fight. And Luana Pinheiro is definitely a good opponent for her. So Pinheiro is 11-3 in MMA, 3-2 in the UFC, 2-1 by KO TKO, 5-1 by sub, and 3-1 by decision. She's coming off of 2 losses though. Jillian Robertson, 14-8 overall, 11-6 in UFC. It's a lot of fights in the UFC right there. 2-1 by KO TKO, 9-1 by sub, and 3-6 by decision. So Jillian Robertson does not want this to go to the judges because she doesn't have good luck when it comes to decision fights for her, but she is coming off a 2-fight win streak. Pinheiro, by the way, very easy on the eyes, especially the picture I just saw. But and this was just on her Tapology page, so yeah. She's on a no, that's a grappling. So yeah, she's on a 2-fight losing streak. Angela Hill and Amanda Hebus, though, those are pretty tough opponents there. She lost by submission to Angela Hill and by strikes to Amanda Hebus. Spinning wheel kick and punches, damn. But she has wins over Michelle Watterson, Sam Hughes, Randa Marcos. Pretty big names there for her. So Pinheiro, pretty experienced, especially with some decent names in the octagon, but she's fighting Jillian Robertson, who also has some big names on her record, and she's been in a lot of fights in the UFC. She's coming off those 2-win. She's on 2-fight winning streak. Man, I am struggling to talk today. She also beat Michelle Watterson and Poliana Viana. Her last loss was to Tabitha Ricci, but she beat Rose Namajunas in a grappling match. As a loss to JJ Aldridge. Yeah, I mean, they've got about the same. Oh, she lost to Miranda Maverick too. She's got a win over Pearl Gonzalez. So some decent names. I mean, they probably have about the same amount of, notable names on their records. So that should be a fun one in the women's strawweight division. Moving on to the men's middleweight division. Yeah, we have GM3 Gerald Meerschaert versus the newcomer for the UFC, Rainier de Ritter, or RDR. Easier said. But he's coming from one championship. He was a 2-division title holder. I think he was in the middleweight and the welterweight division. No, light heavyweight and middleweight. Yeah. So in one championship, he held those 2 belts. Not really sure why he moved over from one championship, but it does sound like there's been some pretty big names just dropping out of the one championship completely. Like Mikey Musumeci, gone, no longer in one championship. DJ obviously retired, but he's gone. There's been a few other fighters that have dropped out from one championship on their own accord, just stating that they weren't Sage Northcutt was one of them as well, and he said something about not being happy with issues with pay and stuff like that. They did not do him any favors with his first fight in one championship, though. Eddie Alvarez left there. Just kind of a lot of sudden departures from that organization. It sounds like there's a slight possibility they're going to move into just having a lot of their international fighters being like the stars of those of that organization and those fights. but who knows? One was pretty big for a long time. They were definitely having exciting fights. But like Tang just lost his title for missing weight or something. It's like their weight cutting stuff is very difficult. They're trying to make it safer by making it about hydration and stuff too. But I mean, they legit they're like, oh, you missed weight and you have a title? Well, that's gone now. It's just quick and easy. Like they don't care. Maybe that's a good thing, but it doesn't help with the fans' interest in the organization, I guess. But well, I guess we'll see what happens in the future. Maybe this year coming up, we'll see a big change with one championship. Maybe they're just making way and freeing up some money to get some really big fighters in there. But when there's no hype around that organization, it's a lot tougher, especially when you have a 2-division champ leaving your organization to go to the UFC. And a lot of people would understand that, but a lot of people would look at all the rest of the people that have left recently and been like, what's happening with this company? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out more soon. But as for now, GM3 Gerald Meerschaert is 37-17 overall, 12-9 in the UFC, 6-4 by KO TKOs. Look at that, 29 submission wins. He has lost 8 times by submission as well, but 29 submission wins, that's a hell of a lot of wins there. And then he's got a losing record by decision, 2-5, so he does not want it to go the distance with that kind of a record in decisions. He's coming off a 2-fight win streak. Rainier de Ritter, RDR, 17-2 overall. He's making his UFC debut against Gerald Meerschaert, who's a tough ass opponent to make your debut against. But when you're a 2-division champion coming out of another big time organization, I guess that's the kind of opponent you should pretty much expect coming into the UFC. So he's 2-2 by KO TKO, 12-0 in submissions. So another good submission guy on the ground. Gerald Meerschaert with those 29 wins, though, that's a lot, but also he's almost at the double digits for losses. And then you got de Ritter, who is 12-0 in submissions. So his only 2 losses are by KO TKO, which might, give Meerschaert a little bit of hope because he does have some decent hands. But obviously with those records in submissions, these guys like to fight on the ground. But RDR also has a way better record in decisions, where he's 2-0, and he is coming off a win outside of the UFC. Let's look at Gerald Meerschaert real quick. Let me find my place. Where am I at? There we are. Oh shit, I started it over. There we go. But GM3 is coming off of 2 wins over Edmund Shabazian and Brian Barberena. Both finishes there by submission, of course. Before that, he was on a 4-fight losing streak, which is fucking tough. I'm sorry, it's only 2 fights because he lost 2 grappling matches, but still, that's got to mess with him because he's a big grappler. He has a loss to Craig Jones and Joe Pyfer by grappling, but Andre Petroski and Joe Pyfer, he lost to Joe Pyfer in the UFC and then goes and grapples him in Fury Pro Grappling and then loses to him again. That's got to fuck with your head. But Joe Pyfer and Andre Petroski were his last losses before the win streak. So yeah, let's look at RDR real quick because I wanted to see who he fought in one championship. His win was over Kasev Magomed Murad, but he lost his belt. Let's see, what division was that? Well, he lost his belt to Anatoly Malikin. I don't even know who that is. A lot of names I don't know here. So that's pretty typical coming out of one championship. So, he's definitely getting a step up in competition coming over to the UFC. Even though, he lost his title to a guy that's still in the one championship. But we'll see what he can do in the UFC. As you can see, that crazy submission on the bottom there by RDR. And it could turn into a really, really strategic, really pretty much a chess match on the ground, which can be boring at times, but then you can also see a lot of high level grappling and Brazilian jiu-jitsu taking place, and that's exciting if you can handle it. So moving on to the next fight, Ricky Turcios, Ultimate Fighter winner, versus Bernardo Sopaj. Turcios is 12-4 overall, 2-2 in the UFC, 3-1 by KO TKO, 1-1 by sub, and 8-2 in decisions. He's coming off a loss. Sopaj is 11-3 overall, only one fight in the UFC, and that is a loss. 7-1 by KO TKO, 3-0 by sub, and 1-2 by decision. Not a good record in the decision column there. Ricky Turcios gets most of his wins by decision, so if this one goes to the cards, that might favor Turcios. But as you can see in submissions, Sopaj is 3-0, never lost, 3 wins, and Turcios is 1-1. So both these guys are coming off losses. Turcios is coming off a loss to Raul Rosas Jr. that happened earlier this year in June. He's kind of had a win-lose type record. Of course, he lost to Ayman Zahabi too. That's a tough one. And then he got a win over Kevin Natividad. Yeah. And then Sopaj, his only fight in the UFC was a loss to Vinicius Oliveira. That was a flying knee, which was a nasty knee. Pretty exciting finish to that fight there. So I mean, Turcios he starts fast. He comes out there ready to go and starts putting the pressure on right away. So maybe he'll find himself with a big KO here, with Sopaj having kind of been exposed to something like that with his first fight in the UFC. But sometimes, you just get caught. So maybe he'll come out and dominate Turcios. Who knows? He does have those 3 submission wins and no losses there. So maybe he'll get him to the ground and get a big submission in. But yeah, moving on. I'm sorry, that was a co-main event. I was about to say moving to the co-main event. Actually, getting to the main event here, wrapping things up. Main event of this card, Neil Magny versus Carlos Prates. Carlos Prates fucking smokes cigarettes before he trains. Like, what kind of fucking savage is this guy? He's like one of those crazy Muay Thai guys who has a lit cigarette in his mouth while he's fucking head kicking the shit out of somebody in the ring. I think he's part of the fighting nerds camp. So these guys have some fucking personalities for sure. They come out there with their little nerd glasses with the tape in the middle. They're funny. They got personality. This fool comes in fucking smoking cigarettes before he trains. Who knows? He might even smoke a cigarette before he fights. It's crazy. But he's fighting Neil Magny, who has a ton of fucking fights under his belt. Not the best record in the world, but a lot of fights to say the least. And most of those fights ending in decision. He's got 20 out of his 33 fights. Yeah. No, 29, 30, 41 total fights. 20 of those have been by decision. So more than half. Fuck, it's a lot of math. Anyway, 29-12 in MMA for Magny, 22-11 in the UFC, 8-3 by KO TKO, losing record in submissions, 4-6, 17-3 by decision. He's coming off a loss. Carlos Prates is 20-6 in MMA, 3-0 in the UFC, so he's looking to keep that undefeated record. 15-2 by KO TKO, big number there. 3-3 by sub and 2-1 by decision. He's on a 3-fight win streak in the welterweight division. So looking at Neil Magny, like I said, he's fought a lot of big names. I mean, he's got so many goddamn fights. Here's one against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. His last fight, like I said, he lost to Michael Morales by ground and pound in the first round. Before that, he had a win over Mike Malott. He lost to Ian Machado Gary. He's got win-lose all the way back. So he had a 3-fight win streak and then it went lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. If he keeps up in that pattern, he's gonna win this fight, but I wouldn't bet on it because Carlos Prates is undefeated, looking to keep that record, and he's definitely one of those guys that is a younger fighter and hungry as hell, and definitely has what it takes to beat somebody like Neil Magny. But Magny pulls out these wins out of nowhere, and you just never know which side of Neil Magny is going to come out for this fight. So big strikes from Neil, as you can see here as well. And yeah, I mean he's pretty well rounded, but again, most of his wins coming by decision. He does enough to, you know, win the points throughout the fight and get the decision wins. But Carlos Prates is a pretty exciting fighter that I don't think is going out there looking for a decision win whatsoever. Let's look at his undefeated record in the UFC. He's 3-0 with wins over Li Jingliang, the Leech. That was a TKO in round 2. Charles Radke, knee to the body in round 1. Trevin Giles, straight left, TKO in round 2. So his 3 fights have all been finishes, and all didn't get to the 3rd round even. So going 5 rounds here, he might be a little reserved in the first couple rounds, but who knows. He won his Contender Series fight to get into the UFC by TKO as well in round 2 of that fight against Mitch Ramirez. So I mean, Prates comes out ready to fight, throwing strikes. You could see how much damage he did to Li Jingliang there. Charles Radke with the big knee. A lot of big stuff coming from Prates. So I think this is probably his biggest step up in competition against Neil Magny, who, like I said, holds his own in every fight. You never know when he's gonna come out and just look dominant and win a fight by decision, and makes you wonder what he's got next, and then he turns around and loses the next one. Hate to say it, but it's true. But with Carlos Prates, he's going to be looking to keep that undefeated record, and he's going to maybe try to show us why he's undefeated and why he's going to stay that way for a while. So big step up in competition for him. We'll see how he does. Don't miss it. UFC Vegas 100 Apex card, but pretty decent fights on this card. Can't complain too much. Just happy to have the fights. And we're just leading up to this big pay-per-view event, as always. Always looking forward to the pay-per-views. We got John Jones versus Stipe Miocic happening in Madison Square Garden in just over a week from today. So that'll be fun. Next week, come back and check out the recap of UFC Vegas 100, as well as a big preview of UFC 309. I will have more energy. Hopefully I'll have had a better day and a better week. I got some good stuff coming this weekend. Having a little kind of somewhat overnighter staycation type thing. Just go hang out at the casino for a little bit. I'm going to try my hand at some blackjack. I've never really sat down at an official table and played blackjack, so I'm going to give it a shot this weekend. And I might be playing some golf and, yeah, just hanging out with my wife and some friends and having a good time. A little bit of time away from regular reality, I guess. So, should be fun. Can't wait for that. I'll be definitely watching out for those highlights, and I will run back and watch the fights probably on Sunday because I'll be busy Saturday night. Playing some blackjack more than likely. So, wish me luck on that. Hopefully, I do better than my betting on fights, but I did win the last time. I did win in the last one, so I came out on top. Let's hope I can do that at the poker table, at the blackjack table at the casino this weekend. So don't forget to come back. Thank you again to my sponsor, Noctane Smelling Salts. Appreciate the sponsorship, as well as everybody that watched and listened. Don't forget you can listen to audio only version on Spotify. Go follow me there, and subscribe and hit the download thing so that way it downloads automatically in case you miss anything or you just want to listen. And then don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube as well. That's the most important. Help me grow my channel. Like the video. If you're here watching it, just hit that like button. It's easy. It's easy to forget, but it's also easy to do. So let's get in the habit of the doing and not forgetting. I try to do that. That's me telling myself as well. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to come back next week, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Same place, same channel always. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Enjoy the fights. Take it easy. Peace.